possibility of living in reality. Realize that when something happens, it simply happens, but we always insist on putting a story around it. The other day I was in the health food store, and the last gluten-free chocolate chip cookie had been sold. And it was simply an event. But this woman, I said, do you have any more gluten-free chocolate chip cookies? She said, oh, you poor thing, the last one is gone. She insisted on making a story around it and putting in sadness and attaching it, poor thing, all the cookies I've missed. But when something happens, it simply happens. It's just a naked event. But we always put an interpretation. We always put a story around it. Often it's poor me. It's part of my drama. It's part of... but you're always free to simply say, this is. And I'm not helping it by hanging a big drama on it. Realize anything that comes up in your mind, you can simply say, story. This is story. This isn't reality. This isn't me. And this will help to break the chains of identification that tie us to the past and tie us to identification with this limited ego and its drama. Your mind is your ego mind. It's a slave to this desperate character. Whose ego, is your ego desperate like mine, desperate for attention, desperate for love, insecure, needy, really high maintenance? And you have a choice to identify with this, to say, I am this needy, insecure, blah, blah, blah. Or to know that you are the witness to this, that you are this infinite being, unborn, undying, filled with creative potential. The thing about the mind is it's creative. And when you buy into your drama, it will continue to create that line of drama. As much attention as you're willing to give that story, it will keep enlarging and enlarging that story. It can go on for a lifetime. And if you choose to not give energy to a particular story, the mind will stop investing in it. You are gods and goddesses co-creating this world. And what your mind dwells upon, you become. The point of power is in this moment, that you choose to focus on the past. I had a wonderful, wonderful sage of a teacher, Papaji. He was a great character. Not merely had he been a buffalo wrestler, water buffalo wrestler at one point in his life, but one of the best stories was when he was in the army. He was an officer in the army, and he would send his servant off as an officer. He had servants. He let his servant go, and he would lock the door, and he would put on his sari and his jewelry and his makeup, and he would dance with Krishna all night. He would be Radha, and he would just be in love dancing with his beloved Krishna all night. And in the morning he'd come out, and they were convinced that he was a lush, that he was drunk, that because he would just be so ecstatic and so happy and so in love. But Papaji, buffalo wrestler, cross-dresser that he was the greatest sage that I'd ever really been around. And you can get his books. He's on YouTube. You can just do a search for Papaji on YouTube. And he did more to demystify spirituality than any of the hundreds of teachers that I've sat before over my decades of searching. But he says the past is a graveyard. There's only skeletons in the past. Do you want to live in a graveyard? Do you want to dance with skeletons? That's the image I always have when I think about, empowering the past and giving energy to the past. There's a level on which the ego mind dwells upon the past where it's traumatic, and it's still trying to sort it out because the ego is so vulnerable and so identified with our trauma. So it's normal for the traumatized mind to obsess upon the past. But you know, my mother passed on at 95, and her mind was still spinning with events that happened when she was 19 and 20. That she'd spent 70 years obsessing with those threats to her fragile ego structure. I'm not sure that most of us are any different. So we have a choice, and the beautiful thing about the work that we're doing here is we understand how to release this trauma from our central nervous system, and how to release that obsession from our hearts and minds. So we always have a choice to identify with that which isn't real, to identify with the contents of our mind and emotions, or to simply say, hey, that story, that's not me. I'm a god, I'm a goddess walking this world. I've been given incredible freedom. I've been given incredible creativity. Again, God has become the world. God lives within you as you. In the Vedic paradigm, sacrifice is central, because the world is the self-sacrifice of the goddess. She's thrown herself into the fire of creation to become you. She's not a puppeteer. She's a Jewish mother who's just thrown herself into the fire for her beloved creation. So we chant this prayer as an affirmation that we're choosing to move from the unreal to the real. And we're reminding ourselves each day that there are myriad of opportunities to move from the unreal to the real, from the shadows of our mind into the self-effulgent light, this light that is uncaused, that needs no other light, the light of consciousness that's right here in this moment. To experience not this fragile ego and its amazing drama, but to experience the infinite creative potential that each of us are as we unfold the creative potential of the universal life, the creative potential of the infinite life. If you have a chance, a great spiritual biography is Papaji's biography in 3 volumes called Nothing Ever Happened. I was talking with my teacher in Rishikesh, and I said, Papaji had married himself to this woman along the banks of the Ganga, and they had a child together. And my teacher said, oh, I guess something did happen. Moving right along. So he has great books. Another one is a book called Truth Is. Another is called Wake Up and Roar. Just really magnificent statements of ultimate truth and the simplicity of ultimate truth, the availability of ultimate truth. His focus is helping us understand that the self is this awareness, it is this presence, and that our work is to abide in the self, to hang out in the present rather than identify with the contents of the mind. And in every moment that you can simply be mindful in the present, this is liberation. Liberation is not some pie-in-the-sky thing that's going to happen 20,000 lifetimes from now. Liberation is a choice in this moment that you and I can cultivate, that you and I can achieve.